On the surface, life inside a cartel looks like power, money, and control. But the moment the cuffs click, the fall is brutal and fast. What happens when the most feared men alive are told they'll never taste freedom again? In this episode, we witness cartel and criminal figures crumble when the sentence hits. And if you ask around, people still get tense at the mention of Guzman Lopez, El Chapo's son. But now all eyes are on him as he stands before the court, facing the weight and reacting to his life sentence.
What began with fireworks to welcome the new year ended with bodies in the street and a G-Wagon torn apart like tissue. It was the 5th of January 2023 when the quiet town of Jesus Maria in Sinaloa, Mexico, normally the kind of place that never makes the news, was thrown into full-blown chaos. That morning, the Mexican military finally got their guy, Ovidio Guzman Lopez, known as El Raton, son of El Chapo. But this wasn't some calm, low-key arrest. It was war in broad daylight, like a military raid ripped from an action movie. Think Black Hawk Down, but in real life. The streets were torn up. The town looked like it had been through a war. Let's rewind to October 2019, the month Ovidio first got caught. The Sinaloa cartel erupted in response. Gunmen turned the city into a war zone. Gunfire in the streets, soldiers taken hostage, even military families were threatened. It got so out of hand that the government let him go. 13 people died, and Mexico's image took a hit worldwide. After that, Ovidio vanished, bouncing between luxury hideouts, living rich but quiet. Then he reappeared in Jesus Maria, a small town of 5,000 where people didn't see him as a criminal. To many, he was the guy who helped out, who paid for things, a protector. Nobody talked. But in December 2022, he got too comfortable. Threw a massive New Year's bash, flew in family, his wife, kids, even his mom, El Chapo's third wife. There were armed guards everywhere, food, drugs, loud music. But most of his men too drunk or too high to react if anything went down. That's when the military made their move. At 4 a.m. on January 5th, helicopters flew in low, straight into Jesus Maria. There's only one road in and out, so they didn't wait. Ovidio was still in bed when they hit. Within minutes, he was in custody, airlifted out before his crew could even load their guns. Then the retaliation began. The Sinaloa cartel went wild. Burning buses blocked highways, helicopters were shot at, tanks came in, and for 10 straight hours, bullets filled the air. By the time it was over, 29 dead, 21 cartel members arrested, and the town left looking like a battlefield. A week later, reporters got access to Ovidio's home. What they found was haunting. Bullet holes everywhere, blood on the floor, furniture, even in the bathroom. His bedroom was like a bunker, 40 guns inside, including one meant to shoot down aircraft. But what hit hardest were his daughter's rooms, toys still in place, tiny shoes on the floor, and a small blood-stained blanket in the corner. A guest room had been turned into a first aid spot for wounded men. Outside, his Mercedes and bulletproof G-Wagon looked like Swiss cheese. The town was left reeling. Homes destroyed, kids missing, and locals claimed soldiers looted whatever they could from Ovidio's place. Jesus Maria hasn't been the same since. Then, on September 15, 2023, Ovidio was extradited to the U.S. on account of drug charges, a huge win in the fight against cartels. But his reaction was calm and collected, almost like he knew this day would come. He showed barely any emotion and definitely no sign of remorse. However, in 2024, another man caught with a bag of marijuana was sentenced to 20 years in prison. No helicopters, no gunfights, no tanks, just a guy and a system that doesn't always play fair.
From the dusty back roads of Sinaloa to the steel bars of America's most feared prison, Joaquin El Chapo Guzman built an empire with blood, fear, and cold ambition. It's wild to think the man who moved billions in drugs once started off broke selling weed as a teen on the streets. And yet, there he was, wiping away tears in a U.S. courtroom. The same man who ran Mexico's drug trade like royalty,
now facing life behind the thickest walls America could offer. Born on April 4, 1957, in a poor mountain village, Chapo's childhood was no fairy tale. His father was half rancher, half drug runner, and fully abusive. He let young Joaquin tag along on drug runs, but kept every cent for himself while the family starved. So Chapo took matters into his own hands. With help from a few cousins, he began growing his own marijuana to support his siblings. When his father kicked him out, Chapo didn't crumble. He dove deeper into the drug world. He linked up with the Guadalajara Cartel, Mexico's top operation at the time, and climbed fast. Not by talking, but by doing. If you held up a shipment, you didn't get a warning, you got buried. His efficiency and lack of hesitation caught the attention of Miguel Ángel Gallardo, the godfather of Mexican trafficking. But when Gallardo was arrested, Chapo didn't slow down. In 1987, alongside a few trusted allies, he launched what would become the most feared drug cartel in Mexico, the Sinaloa Cartel. What made Chapo different wasn't just how much he moved, it was how he moved it. He transformed smuggling, building underground tunnels beneath the US-Mexico border. These weren't crude holes, these were engineered shafts with rails and lights. He trafficked it all: cocaine, heroin, meth, ecstasy, fentanyl, and according to US agents, no one funneled more poison into America than him. But power attracts attention and heat. He was arrested in 1993 and again in 2014. Both times he vanished. One escape came via a laundry cart, the other a mile-long tunnel carved directly into his prison cell. But in 2016, the curtain finally fell. No more bribes, no more tunnels, just 4 cold walls inside ADX Florence, the most secure prison in the US. On July 17, 2019, Joaquin El Chapo Guzman was handed a life sentence plus 30 more years and ordered to forfeit over $12 billion. Even then, he stayed calm. No panic, no breakdown, just a composed man who smiled and waved to his family in the courtroom. When given a chance to speak, he didn't plead. Instead, he condemned the way he'd been treated behind bars, calling it psychological, emotional, and mental torture, and accused the United States government of trampling on his rights. The man who once ruled from mountaintop mansions now wakes up behind bars, and this time, he's not getting out.
Whenever Mexico's most terrifying drug lords come up in conversation, it's always the usual suspects: El Chapo, El Mayo, El Meño. But behind the headlines is a name most have never heard: Jorge Eduardo Castilla Sanchez. Born on the 1st of August, 1971 in Tamaulipas, Mexico, Castilla didn't come from the usual path of crime. In fact, he started out like many ordinary citizens, working a steady job in local government. But all it took was the wrong set of friends and a few dark choices for his life to take a turn most wouldn't dare consider. By the late 1990s, Castilla had slipped quietly into the inner circles of the Gulf Cartel. His rise wasn't accidental, it was strategic. He developed a close alliance with the cartel's leader at the time, Oziel Cardines-Guay. Oziel recognized something dark in him, a taste for control and a dangerous willingness to spill blood to keep it. One day, the cartel's inner circle stumbled upon 2 men poking around, undercover DEA agents. The instinct? Eliminate them. But the agents didn't beg for their lives. They gave a warning. Killing United States federal officers would invite fire from Washington like nothing the cartel had ever seen. Surprisingly, they let them go. Fast forward to mid-March 2003. Oziel was captured in a blazing gunfight with Mexican authorities. Just like that, leadership fell into Castilla's hands. But instead of taking the throne alone, he attempted something risky: sharing power with Oziel's brother Antonio and a few other cartel bosses. Ego, ambition, and distrust ripped through the Gulf Cartel like wildfire. Internal battles soon spiraled into open warfare, especially with Los Zetas, their once loyal enforcers who turned rogue. What followed was not just a falling out, it became one of the deadliest cartel conflicts Mexico had ever seen. Eventually, all the bloodshed caught up with him. On a quiet 12th of September 2012, Castilla was finally cornered and arrested in Tampico. He didn't resist. No bullets, no chase, just silence, like a man who's seen the final chapter coming.
Strangely, few even knew what he looked like. Only 2 photos of him existed publicly. The rest of his identity lived in whispers. Then came the endgame. In 2015, he was extradited to the United States. During the handover, he sat there, blank-faced. No emotion, no protest, just the heavy stillness of a man who knew he'd lost the game. A United States court handed him a life sentence. And just like that, one of Mexico's most shadowy and feared cartel bosses vanished with the cold echo of a prison door shutting behind him.